Please leave a comment where you are watching from. Very hot but innocent girl in college decides she wants to have a date and get frisky. Even goes so far as to tell me beforehand that she wants to do some oral, though she's inexperienced. No problem, nothing like learning on the job. We have a little date, make out a bunch, go back to my place. She's a little awkward at making out and being sexy, even to the point of clumsiness. She's caressing my face in the car to the point where she is covering my eyes sometimes. She's down to her panties. Holy shit, friends. Her body was perfect, but won't let those come off. Well, oral on her is going to be tough like that, but I'm not going to pressure her. We can just make out, and whatever she wants can happen. Some hand stuff over the panties, and she's enjoying it, I'm enjoying it, and I think at this point my boxers have come off. She climbs up, still clad in panties, and starts riding and moaning. Fuck yes, okay, she's digging it, that's great. And it's only a little uncomfortable compared to the good it feels. Every so often she gets it to the angle where it's like, oh, her panties are all that's keeping that from going in, and then goes back to riding. I can feel through her panties that she's basically got me right down the center. And we're both enjoying that. Smiles, moans, heavy breathing, it's good. Then, without pausing her ride or changing tone or emotion whatsoever, she says from atop me, "It feels like I'm being attacked." Hit the brakes. What the F? What? What did you just say? I roll out from under her and leap to the other side of the bed, hauling my underwear up. What do you mean? I've asked for consent every step of the way and made sure everything was okay after we started. If you don't want this, we didn't and don't have to do this. I'll take you home and won't touch you again if you don't want this, that's okay. She assured me that she did give consent and that she did want to be there. To this day I have no idea why she said attacked. I asked my way through every possible angle of consent to see where I might have misstepped or what boundary I might have crossed. Nope, none. I don't know if she knows why she said that. She was really awkward and maybe a little too innocent and naive. But she assured me that everything was consensual and she wants to keep going. But she's afraid if I touch her V, or if she finishes, she'll be addicted to sex and she won't be able to be a virgin on her wedding night. She was enjoying it, she said, but maybe too much, so we had to stop that. But, she suggested, she'd give me a job. It was as terrible as you might expect. I truthfully have no idea why I didn't just say absolutely no. The drive to take her home was weird, and my drive back to my house made me reevaluate my life choices, and where I let my, now very sore, dick lead me. It still led me to some other regrets in the future, but this was the only one this bad and terrifying. I always thought my worst date story would involve a guy ghosting me, but I didn't expect him to actually believe he was a ghost, or a vampire, or whatever the hell he was trying to be. But, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. So I'm Skylar, 33, yoga instructor, vegan, and according to my friends, too picky for my own good. I don't think it's picky to want a guy who's spiritually in touch, emotionally available, and maybe, just maybe, doesn't eat beef jerky for breakfast. But dating in LA is like trying to find a parking spot in Santa Monica on a Saturday. You might get lucky, but it's usually just a lot of waiting and swearing. After yet another disaster date where the guy spent the entire dinner trying to convince me that essential oils were a scam, he was so wrong, by the way, I decided to try Hinge. My friend Chloe swore by it, saying it was classier than Tinder, but not as boring as Match. I wasn't convinced, but I figured it couldn't be worse than the guys I was meeting in real life, right? Enter Damien. Yes, Damien. The name alone should have been a warning sign, but his profile was intriguing. His bio said, modern-day vampire, lover of the night, red wine, and deep conversations. I figured the vampire thing was a joke, like maybe he just really liked gothic novels or had a thing for Halloween. Plus, his pictures were hot, like brooding dark hair and chiseled cheekbones hot. And most importantly, he mentioned that he was vegan. A vegan man who liked wine and deep conversations? It felt like the universe was finally throwing me a bone. Well, a metaphorical bone, because, vegan. We started chatting, and he was surprisingly charming. He used words like ethereal and soul connection, which maybe a little pretentious, but I was into it. He told me he was an artist, which made sense. He had that tortured artist vibe. He didn't overdo it with emojis, and he actually spelled out you instead of using you, which is a rarity in online dating. After a few days of messaging, he asked me to meet him at a wine bar in Silver Lake. The wine bar was exactly the kind of place you'd expect a guy like Damien to pick. It was dimly lit, with candles on every table and a menu that listed artisanal cheeses and handcrafted wines. I got there a few minutes early and ordered a glass of organic red, trying not to look too eager. When he walked in, I almost choked on my wine. He looked even better in person, tall, dark, handsome, and wearing all black, of course. He had this air of mystery about him, like he'd just stepped out of a gothic romance novel. "Skylar," he said, his voice low and smooth like the opening notes of a jazz song. "You're even lovelier than I imagined." I blushed. "And you're even broodier than your photos." He smiled, revealing perfect white teeth. "I'll take that as a compliment. So far, so good." We talked about art, philosophy, and our shared love of animals. He told me he was working on a series of paintings inspired by the moon, which sounded a little cliché. But hey, I wasn't about to judge a man for being passionate. He also mentioned that he didn't go out during the day because he was sensitive to sunlight. Again, I thought it was a joke, so I laughed and said, "Good thing you're not a lifeguard." He just smiled and took a sip of his wine. Things took a turn when the waiter came by to take our food order. I was about to suggest the vegan charcuterie board when Damien held up a hand and said, "Just wine for me." I frowned. "You're not hungry?" He shook his head. "I don't eat solid food." Now, I've been vegan long enough to know that some people have weird diets, so I didn't press him on it. Maybe he was doing some kind of juice cleanse or intermittent fasting thing. But then he leaned in, his dark eyes locking onto mine. "You have beautiful veins," he said. I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" He gestured to my wrist, where the faint blue lines of my veins were visible under my skin. "Your veins. They're exquisite." I laughed nervously. Thanks. I guess." He smiled again, but this time it wasn't charming. It was hungry. "I have a confession," he said, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "I'm not like other people." Oh boy, here it comes. I braced myself for the cliché confession. He was married. He was a recovering addict. He was secretly a billionaire. But no, Damien went in a completely different direction. "I'm a vampire," he said, dead serious. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. "Like a metaphorical vampire?" I asked, trying to give him an out. "No," he said, shaking his head. "A real vampire. I drink blood to survive." There was a long pause as I tried to process what he'd just said. Part of me wanted to laugh, but the intensity in his eyes told me he wasn't joking. "Okay," I said slowly. "So, you drink blood, but you're vegan?" "Of course," he said, looking offended. "I only drink the blood of willing donors. I would never harm an animal." I didn't know whether to be horrified or impressed by his commitment to ethical consumption. Before I could respond, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small vial of red liquid. "This is from my last donor," he said, holding it up like it was the finest wine. "It's O negative. Very rare." "Uh-huh," I said, my voice an octave higher than usual. "That's great." At that point, I was ready to make up an excuse and bolt, but Damien wasn't done. He started talking about the community of modern-day vampires in LA, how they held secret gatherings and supported each other in their quest to live authentically. He even invited me to one of their events, saying it would be a transformative experience. "Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on that," I said, grabbing my purse. "This has been interesting, but I think I should go." Damien looked genuinely disappointed. "I understand," he said, standing up. "Most people aren't ready to embrace the darkness." "Right?" I said, nodding. "Well, good luck with everything." As I walked out of the wine bar, I could feel his eyes on me, like he was memorizing the shape of my veins. I didn't stop walking until I was safely in my car, doors locked and engine running. Needless to say, I deleted Hinge that night. I should have known better than to swipe right on a man whose profile picture was him wrestling an alligator. But there I was, sitting in a crawfish shack, watching him cry over mild seasoning. It all started on a sticky Thursday evening in Lafayette, Louisiana. I was sitting on my porch with a glass of sweet tea, lazily swiping through Tinder like I was skimming through a pile of old Mardi Gras beads. Most of it junk, but every now and then, you find something shiny. Left. Left. Hard left. Lord have mercy, definitely left. And then there he was. Chad. Chad's profile was, well, it was something. His main picture was him shirtless in cargo shorts, wrestling an alligator that looked about as excited to be there as me at my cousin's third wedding. His bio: loves the outdoors, spicy food, and strong women. Bonus if you can outdrink me. Now, I know what you're thinking, red flags. But let me tell you, when you've been single as long as I have, sometimes red flags start looking like carnival decorations. Plus, I was curious. Was this man actually out here wrestling gators for fun? Or was it some weird flex to impress women? Either way, I decided to roll the dice. I swiped right. Within minutes, he messaged me. "Hey there, Jolene. You like crawfish? Now, let me tell you something. Asking a Cajun girl if she likes crawfish is like asking a duck if it likes water. It's not even a question, it's a given." So I replied, born and raised on it. And just like that, we had plans for Friday night at one of my favorite crawfish shacks in town. Against my better judgment, I was actually looking forward to it. Friday rolled around, and I put on my best pair of jeans, a cute top, and my lucky turquoise earrings that my grandma swears will catch you a man. I even spritzed on some perfume she gave me for Christmas, the one with a name I can't pronounce but smells like gardenias. I pulled up to the crawfish shack a little nervous but mostly excited. The place was packed, as it always is on a Friday night, with the smell of Cajun spices filling the air and Zydeco music playing in the background. It felt like home. Then I saw him. Chad. In the flesh. And Lord, was he a sight. His Tinder pictures hadn't done him justice, and I don't mean that in a good way. He was taller than I expected, tall enough that his cargo shorts looked even more ridiculous, and his shirt was one of those "I wrestle gators, what's your superpower?" tees that you can probably only buy at a gas station. His hair was gelled into something resembling a porcupine, and he had sunglasses perched on his head, even though it was 7 o'clock at night. But the real kicker? He had a necklace made out of alligator teeth. I kid you not. "Jolene," he said, flashing me a grin that was about 90% confidence and 10% dental work. "Dang, you're even prettier in person." I forced a smile. "Thanks, Chad. You're, taller than I thought." We grabbed a table near the back, right under a giant mural of a crawfish wearing a chef's hat. I figured I'd give him the benefit of the doubt. After all, you can't judge a man entirely by his gator wrestling pictures. But it didn't take long for things to go south. The first sign was when the waitress came over to take our order, and Chad asked, "What's the least spicy thing y'all got?" Now, I'm a patient woman, but I'm also Cajun, and hearing someone say least spicy in a crawfish shack is like hearing a chef ask for ketchup at a 5-star restaurant. The waitress blinked at him, clearly just as confused as I was. We can do some plain boiled shrimp, I guess," she offered. "Perfect," Chad said, handing her the menu. "And can you bring extra napkins? Like a lot of them?" I stared at him. "You don't like spicy food?" "Oh, I do," he said quickly, like he was trying to convince himself. "I just don't want to overdo it, you know. Gotta keep my taste buds intact for all the gator jerky I eat." I didn't even know how to respond to that, so I just nodded and placed my own order. A full tray of crawfish, extra spicy, with a side of corn and potatoes. The waitress gave me a knowing look, like she could already tell this date was going to be a disaster. When the food arrived, things went from bad to worse. I dug into my crawfish with the kind of enthusiasm that only a true Cajun can muster, while Chad stared at his plate of plain boiled shrimp like it was a science experiment. He picked up one shrimp, hesitated, and then took the smallest bite I've ever seen a grown man take. His face turned red almost immediately. Is it spicy?" I asked, genuinely confused. He nodded, grabbing for his water like it was the last drink on earth. "They must have put something on it," he gasped. "Maybe black pepper or something. I'm real sensitive to spices." I blinked. "Black pepper?" He nodded again, tears streaming down his face. "Yeah, it's brutal. You Cajun folks are wild." At that point, I wasn't sure whether to laugh, cry, or just walk out. But I stayed, either out of morbid curiosity or sheer stubbornness. The rest of the date was a blur of awkward conversation and increasingly bizarre revelations. Chad told me about his dream of opening a gator wrestling-themed amusement park, complete with a gift shop that sells alligator tooth necklaces like the one he was wearing. He also mentioned, very casually, that he still lives with his ex-girlfriend because it's cheaper than moving out. By the time the waitress brought the check, I was already planning my escape. But Chad had one more surprise for me. As he reached for his wallet, he knocked over his glass of water, right onto my tray of crawfish. I stared at the soggy mess in disbelief, while Chad laughed nervously and said, "Guess I'm just clumsy around pretty girls." I didn't even bother responding. I just stood up, grabbed my purse, and said, "Well, Chad, it's been something, but I think I'm going to call it a night." As I walked out of the crawfish shack, I could hear him calling after me. "Hey, can I at least get your Snapchat?" Needless to say, I deleted Tinder that night. I'm a woman in my 30s with a reasonably good corporate-type job in a field with lots of room for growth, and am recently back into the dating scene after a decade. I'm kind of a would-be a 10 if she lost 30 pounds looking girl, beautiful face if a bit chubby, but I never have issues getting a date. I'm not well off, but I'm stable and have a bit of spending money. I live in a large multicultural city, and my ex was an immigrant, so I'm open to dating people of any origin. What happened? A few weeks ago I met a very charming man from a Latin American country, only a couple years younger than me. Seemed very sweet, cuddly, intelligent, family-oriented, emotionally available, educated, and in a good profession back home in his country, and had a lot in common with me. Chemistry seemed amazing inside and outside the bedroom. He was honest that he was in my country on a tourist visa but hoping to stay. I made it clear I wouldn't be able to help him with that, but we'd have a fun summer fling while he was here. If he managed to stay or come back, only then would we consider a real relationship. Then the other shoe dropped. A couple weeks and 4 dates in, during a text conversation about my work, he asked me to be his sugar mommy. I initially laughed and assumed it was a joke. He kept pushing and clearly said it wasn't. Of course, feeling insulted by this, I went off on him. He maintained it as a serious ask until I hit a nerve with my complaints about how embarrassed he should be to ask me that. Then he got angry and insulted me for thinking he was serious about it. No apology for being hurtful to me. Obviously what I did next was take screenshots and cry about it to my closest friends. I was hurt that I was fooled into thinking he liked me, and that he thought I needed to pay for a man. My friends started the fuse on what happened next. One of my friends started snooping more on his online presence. Together we found about 6 different Instagram accounts that were him using different variations of his name and different photos of himself all uploaded in batches. On Facebook, a similar pattern, all very scammy and suspicious looking. He'd been foolish enough on one of his profiles though to follow and tag the employer that he was working for illegally on his tourist visa in my country. So I contacted another close friend in a local law enforcement agency that works with immigration. She looked up his file. He had a wife and daughter at home. I released the hounds after that. The friend who helped me investigate online made several group chats on multiple platforms with all of his family, immediate and extended, and friends. She released all the screenshots as well as a rant about how shameful it was. As they started blocking her, she added more people. I found his sister's phone number. She sent her messages on there too. Everyone he knows, including his wife, know he's unfaithful and trying to take advantage of women. 30 minutes after the online bombardment started, I got a rude message from him about how I should be smart enough to know he was joking, and he doesn't need to sell himself. I didn't reply. Next step? Online immigration reporting form with all the info we found. Work info, employer name and address, his home address, full name, DOB, photos, screenshots admitting to working. Usually these reports take months to be reviewed if at all, but I gave the file number to my law enforcement friend. 2 days later, law enforcement officers visited him at home. They found him with a phone number that was issued to a local resident. All his roommates also had numbers issued to the same person, a direct link to the employer. He received a caution for trying to scam me, a no-contact order, and a flag on his immigration file that, based on his country of origin, will likely mean he can never return, as well as a strict warning to not work without authorization. His roommates also received warnings. His employer received a visit next. They found significant proof that they'd been employing him illegally, as well as multiple other people. Their investigation is still ongoing, but so far they are likely to receive tens of thousands in fines or possible jail time. The guy isn't getting deported because the government would have to pay for it, and proceedings take longer than his remaining visa time, but he's now upgraded from a flagged file to a multi-year ban on re-entry to my country. If he bothers me again, though, he will be deported as well. Hope he enjoys going back to his angry wife and the ridicule from everyone he knows. See ya again never. For context, my family is in a very fortunate position financially, and I would describe myself as upper middle class. This story happened a few years ago when I was at university. It was a fairly small university, so many of the students lived locally, in a generally very working class area. I also have a twin brother who goes to a different university nearby, who has a small part to play in this story. I had never really had much luck with dating due to having some pretty niche hobbies and interests, so it was hard to find people I can relate to and really click with, but I would always get on, and remain friends with people if things didn't work out. I ended up dating a few girls on the uni netball team, They all seemed nice, but again, it was clear we were not a great match. Because I stayed on good terms with everyone, I ended up spending a lot of time around the people I had previously dated, but just as friends. Consequently, most people on the netball team were familiar with me. Enter the greedy girl, Gigi. She was a bit of an outlier in the team and didn't speak much, so nobody knew much about her. One day, she comes up to me and asks me out on a date. This was a nice surprise as I was normally the one asking. So I said yes, as I had no reason to dislike her at this point. After I say yes, we chat for a bit, and she keeps trying to shoehorn into conversation the fact that she, like many others around here, doesn't have a lot of money. I didn't really think about it too much at the time, but in hindsight it was obvious. To keep the story short, I won't explain the dates. We went on 3 before I realized how greedy she was. All you guys need to know is that I paid for everything on every date, but I didn't mind doing this. We normally went out on weekends. One day I went to the library to get some work done. The desks have tall partitions between them for independent work, but whispering was still allowed in this area. Over the partition in front of me, I hear Gigi's voice whispering to a friend. I begin to stand up to say hi, but stop myself to listen to their conversation, just before my head emerged over the top. She was talking about me, calling me things like a posh C** and T, but saying she was going to let me take her on a few more dates because I took her to fancy bars and bought her expensive drinks. I thought about it and realized that she had always gone for the most expensive drinks on our dates so far, so I decided it was time for some revenge. I left the library without being seen. A few days later, I actually saw her driving a brand new BMW Z4, so she was clearly pretty damn rich herself. The best and fanciest bar in this town was owned by my best friend and her family. It was a small bar, but very high-end, with some of the drinks being over 15 pounds for a very small drink. Therefore, not many of the students went in, but if you were invited there on a date, it was a special one. I spoke to my friend, whose family owned the bar, and got her in on my plan for revenge, ensuring she would have my back if things went wrong. I was pretty paranoid about getting caught, because I planned on tricking Gigi into paying for everything that night, up to a total of the cost of all the previous dates combined, in excess of 250 pounds. To cover my tracks, I asked my twin brother if he wanted to go out with my friends to the pub, telling him my plan, and that I would give him some money if he went out dressed like me and with his hair styled the same. I also told him to take plenty of pictures with my friends, so I had an alibi. The night of the date came around. The bar was busy, but we managed to get a table. I immediately lied to her, saying I had forgotten my card, but if she paid I could transfer her the money later. She agreed. I had done this for real on the second date, and paid her back as soon as I got home, so she knew I was reliable. I told her to stay sat down and save the table, while I went and ordered drinks and the biggest and fanciest tapas plate on the menu from the bar. My friend, pretending she didn't know me as agreed, served me the drinks. Gigi seemed to be in disbelief of my generosity and pretended that she was having one of the best dates of her life. I also pretended to be enjoying it, continuing to buy expensive food and drink until I had nearly spent the target 250 pounds on her card. The dessert section of the bar's menu is titled Just Desserts. Finding this oddly appropriate for my revenge, I asked her if she wanted her just desserts, pointing at the menu. She laughed and said yes, so I went up to the bar once again with her card and ordered 2 of the super deluxe chocolate fudge cakes. I told my friend to keep one for herself for when her shift ends, and if they could write F***CKU on top of Gigi's. The bar has candles with letters on for birthdays, etc. I then returned to Gigi, handed her card back, and told her I was going to the gents' bathroom. I left, never repaid the money, and went to join my mates and brother at the pub. Gigi confronted me in front of the netball team a few days later, but I just acted confused, telling her I was out with my friends that night, and showed her the selfies my brother had taken with my mates when she tried to argue with me. The entire netball team took my side and stopped speaking to her. Gigi has since left the netball team, and from what I can tell I don't think she has many friends now. I had a fantastic night of revenge with fine food and drink at her expense. My friend got a fudge cake, my brother got some money, and all the lads got to go to the pub. All in all, I found it super satisfying, as everyone but Gigi was happy. I was 17 when this happened. He had told me he was 19. It's also not illegal in my state. I met him through a friend of mine. I saw him on her friend's Snapchat story while I was using her phone, asked for his snap, and he added me back, the whole process. I disclosed that I was 17, and he said he was fine with it seeing as he had just turned 19. Anyway, we talked for a few days, and I learned that he lived not too far away from me, worked at a mall nearby, and that we had a lot in common. We planned our date for a Tuesday, which was strange, and he drove me to a theater that's about 40 minutes from my house and an hour from his. Where I live there are two much closer theaters, so this was pretty weird. We get there, and I ask him if we can get snacks. He says no, that he plans to go to dinner afterwards. I noticed as he bought the tickets that they were only $12 for both of us combined, but it didn't really matter at the time. That we saw a movie I had really no interest in seeing, but I guess it was alright. He tried to do the old arm around the shoulders trick, which I quickly shut down and asked him politely not to do again. He seemed alright and apologetic. Anyway, we leave the theater, and he asks where I would like to eat. I say Chili's. So we go to Chili's. I, at the time, had been working at McDonald's and was very excited when I got a notification on my phone as we drove that said my first paycheck had been deposited into my account. So I stupidly said out loud, "Just got paid." That was my downfall. We get there, and the first thing he immediately does is order 4 appetizers, and to my horror, orders a drink, and when the waitress cards him, he hands her a horizontal ID. I don't know if other states are the same, but in mine you get a vertical ID until you're 21 and a horizontal one when you're older than 21. I asked him if that was a fake ID, and he just said no. I'm 23. I used to be a real pushover kind of girl. Also, the time was nearing 11, and I was worried my parents would have been mad at me if I called them to pick me up, seeing as the restaurant was a good 30 minutes from my house. I was also scared that he would get angry or violent if I tried to leave, so I didn't try. He gets his drink and orders 2 more throughout the night, on top of a steak, a bunch of sides, and of course 2 desserts. All I had was a burger that I didn't even finish because I was so nervous that I was on a date with an adult 6 years older than I who'd also been drinking. Anyway, the waitress comes around and she nicely hands him the bill and says, "When you're ready." Without hesitation he grabs it, hands it to me with a smile, and says, "You got this, right?" I didn't even know what to do. I was so meek and easily manipulated that I just put my card in the billfold. I left a $7 tip for the woman, so the bill came out to about $87. We got in the car, he drove me home, tried to give me a kiss, and said, "Let's do this again." I blocked his number as I walked down my driveway. Flash forward to this past summer when I was 18, at the shopping mall he worked at with my friends. Due to some injuries in my legs, I had gained a little bit of weight, but nothing major. We were in the store he worked at, which is a pretty big store. I had forgotten he had worked there until I saw his smug ass, and it was clear he remembered me. He came up to us with a shit-eating grin and asked us if there was anything he could help us with. We didn't need help, just looking around, but he made sure to say to me, "Wow, you've fluffed out since the last time I've seen you. You look good." Now, I'm a curvy girl. I get this sort of thing a lot. But on top of the bill, the drinking, the lying, and the creepiness that he thought a date with a 17-year-old was acceptable, I had had it. I just smiled politely at him, asked my friends if they wanted to go to another store, and as we left I called the store and demanded to speak to the manager. I was pretending to sob, saying how he had made fun of my body, acted poorly to my friends and I, that I would never be stepping foot in the store again, and that I wanted corporate's number to lodge a complaint for harassment. You know, the typical over-exaggerated bullshit. I didn't throw in any sexual harassment terms, because I'm not going to accuse anyone of being something like that, but I was making a scene. I lodged a complaint with 5 different department leaders at the corporate call center, and told them I felt uncomfortable shopping in any of their stores ever again, because of the treatment I had been subjected to, blah blah blah. 6 days later, hanging out with the friend who set me up with him, she asks me if I remember him. Yes I do, I say. She shows me his Snapchat story. All black, white text, "Cannot believe I just got fired after 2.5 years for no reason." Turns out his company was an at-will employer. They didn't even have to give him a reason for firing him. He probably doesn't even know it was me. Well, he might now, but that's fine. He was working his way through film school and had to pick up an overnight job at a fast food place to make ends meet. My revenge came in 2 parts, one petty and one pro. I should warn that the following contains graphic details of various kinds of bodily harm. If that bothers you, skip the background and just read the revenge. The backstory. When I was 19 or 20, I'm 25 now, I met a guy on Tinder. Let's call him Brad. Brad and I didn't get off to a great start, but I had no idea how bad it was going to get. At first it just seemed we were incompatible, as he was pushy and rude, and I take no crap. If it had stopped there, I wouldn't be here right now. But it didn't stop there. Once I made it clear that I found Brad repulsive and wanted nothing to do with him, his messages took a turn. He threatened to stalk, kidnap, and murder me, along with some gory details. Particularly disturbing was his explicit desire to strangle me and watch the life leave my eyes. He also managed to find my home address, 3 hours away from the city we were in, and threatened to come find me. As a side note, it was my dad's house, and some small part of me wanted to see exactly how badly it would turn out for him if he showed up there. Of course, I warned my dad and gave him a picture of the guy. I also took screenshots of everything he sent me. The petty. Being a young woman with no idea whether this madman would actually go to lengths to find me, I called the cops. When they came, they looked at the messages, told me it constituted terroristic threat, but also told me there wasn't much they could do unless Brad actually showed up. They did take down his details, including where he worked, which is listed in his bio. This will be important later. From what I understand, the cops went to Brad's workplace to speak to him, and he refused, so they left. Nothing ever came of it. For the second part of the petty, I found his Facebook. Again, don't put your freaking workplace on all of your social media. I snooped around and managed to find a couple of his family members. I sent them all the screenshots along with an explanation of what happened. I didn't hear back for a few days, but when I did it was from Brad's mom. She apologized profusely on behalf of her son and told me they were driving in from Brad's hometown 3 states away to confront him. She asked me not to warn him of this in advance, and obviously I agreed. I don't know what became of this, but I hope he got a good, Southern-style ass hooking. Now for the pro. A few years later, when Brad probably thought he was in the clear, something jogged my memory of what he did, and I decided it was time for him to face some actual consequences. I made a Facebook post including his picture and bio, all of the screenshots, and a message warning people in our area, and asking them to share it around so other women would know what they were dealing with. 2 days later, Facebook took it down, but the damage had already been done. 3K shares and many messages later, all of that information had made its way to his company's Facebook page. From what I understand, they were absolutely flooded with messages about Brad and his behavior. They responded with a stock message about how they were dealing with it according to their policies. This was disheartening, as I assumed they were just going to blow it off. By this point, Brad had been working for them for at least 4 years. However, I soon learned this was not the case. Several women from his company messaged me to thank me for coming forward and exposing the kind of person they were working with. It was through one of these women that I found out what happened to good old Brad. He was called into a meeting with his boss, HR, and the CEO of the company. As a side note, this is a multinational company, and the CEO is a woman. They did not take the situation lightly. Within 2 days of posting on Facebook, Brad had been fired and escorted off the premises by armed security. In the end, Brad got what he deserved, and now he has a massive blank spot on his resume, as this company was his first job out of college, and he can no longer get a letter of recommendation from them. As far as what became of him, I don't know. I never heard from him again, though I did get a message from his grandma telling me that what I was doing is illegal, LOL. Honestly not proud of this. Using a throwaway because I feel like a piece of shit about it. Also, the whole experience was terrible, so this one is going to be a long one. Started talking to a girl on a dating app. Things were going okay. We decided it would be fun to meet too, but she didn't drive. If I recall, she was 19, so kind of a red flag, and she figured I could drive to her place. I agree, and then I learned she lives about an hour away north of me. I live in a small city. You could almost even not call it a city. But she lived on a town north of the biggest city in my state, which I am always do nervous to drive in because city driving is so crazy to me. I do it anyways because interested in girl, and the drive obviously was stressful and crazy. I get out of the city and start realizing this girl doesn't live in something I'm used to. It's a lot more rural than I thought. Like middle of fucking nowhere rural. Whatever, not a big deal, I guess I'm just nervous about the drive. I take a turn down onto the street she lives. I see several trailers. I'm like, oh fuck, okay, well I don't really care if she's wealthy or not. I pass the turn on accident and almost pull into a dead end at the end of the street where some guy's property has a big Confederate flag and a sign that says trespassers will be shot. Reverse down the road. Girl says she'll meet me outside. Immediate first impression, catfished hard. Girl looked almost triple her size from pictures. Well, not exactly a deal breaker for me, because I'd like to think I'm not too shallow. Get out of my car. Next impression is she's very, very quiet. Like I'm thinking, do you even want me here right now? Quiet, but she comes off as really shy was all. Couldn't look me in the eyes. Girl is wearing very baggy clothing. She tells me in a really awkward way that her mom wants to meet me, which made me a little nervous because we had not discussed meeting parents at all, and again, middle of fucking nowhere. As well as at this point, I'm noticing how run down this trailer looks. I agree, and follow her inside, and try not to fall into her home's stairs, which has fallen apart, and had a plank of wood laid across it to step on. I'm basically kind of scared that I'm getting lured into someone's house to be attacked or some shit, but trying not to be mean. The house lead to her kitchen, and holy shit, this place is a stein. Literally some shit out of the show Hoarders. Garbage everywhere. Girl steps over garbage, and keeps and goes through a fucking door frame with a garbage bag hung from the top like those hippie bead doors, only obviously trashier. I follow her in, and the living room is even worse. Literally piles of garbage all over the place, can't even see the floor. I see her mom, laying on the couch. Mom is immensely obese, but I couldn't really even see her all the way because she's just in this pile of stuff basically. Mom said just a friendly hi. Have fun, girl. Okay. Walked backwards through the house and was thanking God I was outside. Girl says we could go to a park. I'm all about it, because please get me out of here. I let her in my car and realize she has extremely bad hygiene. Really, really smells bad, extremely poor hygiene. Also notice slight mustache, which I feel very bad about feeling grossed out about, because I know for some girls, if they have co's, that's very hard to manage. But this girl doesn't seem like she cared. At this point I'm kind of ready to just bail, as not attracted to girl, very awkwardly quiet, and just all around a very uncomfortable situation. I follow her instructions on where to drive, and am trying to make conversation. Girl is very quiet. We get to park. She immediately tries to make out with me. I'm like, there's kids literally playing right in front of us. She's like, oh, just pull in over there then. I'm super non-confrontational, so I will often do things I really don't want. And in this case, I drove to some other part of the parking lot. Girl keeps kissing me. I'm thinking, okay, I'm not into this at all, but I guess. Kissing is okay. I keep pulling away though and saying, I'm sorry, I'm really freaking awkward. She keeps trying to kiss me, and I'm not into it at all, but whatever, I just wanted the F thing to be over. After this, I'll make up some BS excuse and go home. I keep doing the whole, yeah, sorry I'm awkward, and trying to stop things. Girl makes a comment like, I put on my baggiest shirt because I expected to be bending over the seat. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool, haha. Girl was heavily hinting that she wanted to give me a blowjob. I told her, yeah, this is way too public for me, and she's like, oh, start driving. As soon as I'm on the main road, the girl tells me there's a Walmart we can park behind. At this point, I'm not about this at all. I say some shit like, oh, well, I've never actually been in this town. I was thinking it'd be fun if you showed me around, and maybe we can keep driving, right? Fun? And proceed to just drive around like crazy, and all around this non-existent rural area. After this, I make up an extra, because she keeps talking about going to the Walmart. I'm like, yeah, shit, lost track of time. I need to go study for my exam. I'm really sorry. I drive her home, and she asks me to get out of the car, so she can give me something. I resist at first, but end up getting out. She goes and grabs a very filthy bear plush holding a heart. I muster an aw thanks. She then says she wants a hug before I go. I'm like, okay. She tries to kiss me one last time. I stop her and she laughs and says, wow, you're awkward. And then I basically apologize and agree. I get back in my car, tell her I'd text her, and speed the fuck out of there. I then close the night out by calling my friend, telling him all about how awkward, gross, and terrible the whole day was, and how driving through the city was just the cherry on top of all the garbage. Worst part of all of this was I tell her it's not going to work, but the next day was Valentine's Day, fun story, but bad time, and felt like a dick for but being into it. I had a girl that I used to work with call me years later after building some sexual tension while we're working together. But she had a boyfriend at the time, first red flag, then a month after she dumped him she called me for a date. She kept telling me how I was special and something that she really wanted and had been wanting you for a long time. 6 months and she decides to go through my computer and all of my messages and proceeds to take everything out of context, and after her invasion of my privacy, I decided to break it off. The only smart thing I did in this relationship. But then I got lonely, and so did she, and she thought it would be fun to be friends with benefits, and so did I. Justin was complete honesty, and if we were seeing anyone else to be upfront about it, and since we were having unprotected sex, if we had sex with anyone else it would be safe. She proceeds to start seeing someone that she deliberately told me wasn't a threat and didn't tell me about. And the day that I called her after the date, she lied to me, and then eventually broke down and said they had sex, unprotected sex to boot. I didn't take this well, and she seemed very concerned about how I was taking it. We met up later, and she was telling me how hurt she was feeling the whole time, joking with the guy she cheated on me with about how she had a sore throat from him, F her face. Yes, I know I've lost track of how many red flags too. But she apologized, and I took her back, and he told me that he was nothing and a meaningless F-boy. Fast forward 3 years, and I catch her cheating on me again, this time with multiple people. My stupid ass thinks their sole path forward for us because I was emotionally committed to the relationship. And those 3 years are me trying to make things right. And it turns out she had been trying to drive me away, but she didn't have the guts to break up with me. So that explains why she was cheating on me with anyone that showed her interest. We started couples counseling, and that's when she told me her meeting with FBOI had been a relationship, not just a one-night stand. I was also having health issues at this time, and my first hospitalization was when she really started cheating on me in earnest. And when I got paranoid enough about it, I looked up her Reddit history, because she would give me her username in the past. Needless to say, that was very eye-opening and hurtful, because she is on her /adultery telling people how to cheat and get away with it. Also multiple posts complaining about her horrible boyfriend. Also a post about cheating in other cities, and complaining she couldn't find a good AP in her local area. It wouldn't reject her when they found out she was cheating. I confronted her with the information on cheating and her Reddit posts, and she hid her history and got mad at me for invading her privacy. I should also point out during this, she got arrested for being blackout drunk, slashed her wrists, and didn't tell me. And during COVID I supported her while she was throwing money into her vacation fund. In the beginning of 2021, when I had another health issue and was hospitalized again, she broke up with me 2 days after Valentine's Day, after ignoring me for several days in a row, while I was still recovering from surgery. During this relationship, I kept trying to make moves to get us closer physically and emotionally, because it was a long-distance relationship, about an hour drive. So I was choosing jobs that were between her and I so I could eventually move towards her, and I wasn't taking the opportunities near where I lived because I wanted to be with her. There was more, including lying about a lot of things and taking advantage at me and my support, including lying to me about how much things cost so she could pocket some extra cash for drugs, when she wasn't just blowing her drug dealer. So I wasted 6 years of my life, crippled my career, and put my kids through hell because they liked her too, even though in private she talked about how my children were a burden. And yes, I understand that I was stupid during all of this. But the kicker was when she finally grew enough of the spine to break up with me. She blamed every bad day she had had on me, which ignored her poor decisions, alcoholism, self-harm, and constantly seeking attention from other men. I had built my life around the relationship because I loved her and I thought she was my future. So when we broke up and I realized she had been trashing me to anyone who would listen, the majority of my friends evaporated, and people I thought I could trust were the ones covering for her having affairs. And I ended up checking myself into a crisis ward about a month later, as I was having a hard time recovering from the pain of my surgeries and the isolation. And the worst part is we still have a mutual friend occasionally tells me how much she still lies about it, so she doesn't look like a bad person, which was also her excuse for lying to me for all those years. She also likely staking my Reddit post. So Emily, I hope you see this and realize you're a horrible person, and I never want to see you again. You also deserve all the pain you bring on yourself. Usually I don't mind bad dates, and I don't even mind crazy dates, but there is still one date failure that hurts. I met this girl on Bumble. Her profile was really sparse. There were only 2 selfie pictures, and both looked somehow weird. But when we messaged, we found out that we had a similar background, and after 30 minutes of messaging, we decided on a date on the next day. I didn't even know what she was doing, and she only had some minimal information about me. I had low expectations, but I liked going out, and the meeting was at my favorite bar. When I met her in real life, I was shocked. The pictures didn't do her any justice. She looked gorgeous, was tall, had a beautiful smile, and was extremely kind and intelligent. She was working in education for young children, writing poems, and spent her youth at the same places as me. I was extremely confident and at my best this day. She was constantly laughing at my jokes and obviously enjoyed any minute with me. We talked the whole night until they kicked us out at 4 a.m. The time flew by so fast, I couldn't believe how late it was when we got out. I gave her a hug after the date when before her bus arrived. But I felt that maybe I should have kissed her. I went happy home and couldn't believe how lucky I was to spend such a great evening with this wonderful human being. The next day I wrote her, and she wrote me that she had a great time as well, and we planned the second date. I thought that this time I would definitely give her a kiss when the moment is right. The second date was a disaster. We planned on going to a small market close to a castle, but when we met it was raining heavily. I picked her off of the nearest train station, and we walked together, but then I went the wrong way, and we spent 30 minutes walking through a sketchy area. I became confused and nervous, and after we finally arrived I realized that this was a really bad place for early dating. We barely had time to talk, walked confused through a place which was overcrowded, obviously pre-corona, and I lost my confidence and was stuttering and behaving like someone who has never been outside. Later on we went to a bar, and I was telling her the most boring stuff about work which probably would have even bored my colleagues. Even after all of this, she was still kind and gave me a chance. But in the end I urged her to dance with me on the street, which she obviously didn't like, and which made her uncomfortable. Then exactly the exact moment the bus arrived, I stopped her and tried to kiss her in the cringiest way. Not only did she miss the bus, because of me she also felt really uncomfortable and rejected my kiss attempt, which was really out of place. I felt like shot for 2 days, and I wrote her a long message and apologized for my behavior. She wrote me back a long message and told me among many things that I am a kind and wonderful man, but that she didn't feel the chemistry. I totally managed to both a perfect first date with the worst second date I can imagine, and I still cringe about my behavior and my decisions that day. Had I been more relaxed and casual like I usually am, and as confident as on the first date, this could have been a wonderful start to a promising relationship. But I don't regret it at all. Because of this experience I learned to be much more relaxed on dates, and this led to a wonderful relationship a couple months later. Another story to add: blind date with a doctor. He had said he finds dating hard as women lead him on, and then ghost him when they realize he works shifts. About 20 minutes into proper conversation, after an hour of waiting to be served at the bar, I realize I'm feeling zero chemistry. No, maybe absolutely nothing there. He wasn't bad looking or had a horrible personality to that point. I just felt nada and didn't want to lead him on. So I said to him I was enjoying his company and appreciated him meeting up with me in London. It was a 40-minute commute for us both. But I wasn't feeling anything romantic and didn't want to lead him on. But we got along fine, and as we had both traveled, I said I was happy to have a few drinks and chat as we had friends in common, and it would be nice to get along as friends. His response: "Oh, thank goodness, I was thinking the same." We stay at the bar alternating who is buying drinks, just soft drinks, and each order our own snacks. Body language and distance clearly in the acquaintance zone. It was pleasant. I start feeling funny, and know I have a migraine coming, and explain I need to leave and why. He says okay, but the second we get outside, he grabs my hand in a vice-like grip and insists on a riverside walk and starts literally dragging me along. I try and pull away, and even though we're in a crowded area, no one intervenes, but after I start saying I need to go, a few people stare. He then grabs me by the shoulders and turns me to face a street performer who is miming about us being on a date and in love, and the guy then stands behind me and holds me in place by resting his arms around my shoulders. He was super tall, with his arms practically choking me in a headlock, but could be construed as a hug to surrounding people. I bend one of his fingers back and escape to the station, and he's following me saying it's okay, I'm just reacting badly because of the migraine, and shouting to bystanders he's a doctor and looking after me. Literally as he's shouting that, a woman in front of me collapses, and a group of us go over to help her out. He is at that point nowhere to be found. Anyway, ambulance arrives and carts her off within probably 10 to 15 minutes. I look around, I don't see him, and I'm pissed he ran off rather than help, which doctors are obliged to do in the UK, and ironically her condition was his specialty. But relived, he's gone. As I enter the station and get on the downwards escalator, he reappears and stands on the step in front facing me, and gets really close, like his face an inch away from mine, saying he's going to see me home. I insist I'm good on my own. He does not need to do an hour round trip, and then his own commute. I sit down on the step and cover my face with my hands to get him out of my space. He still didn't get the hint. I got to the stage where I was literally shouting, "No, leave me alone," and he was playing the "I'm a doctor and she's crazy because she's migraining" card. Finally, my medication kicks in with its glorious side effect, and I deliberately puke at him. He threatens to sue me for dry cleaning costs as his trousers got some splatter, but he finally left. He told mutual friends we were dating, and I was seeing him next week. I shared my version, including me texting him to never contact me again. Apparently the guys thought I was mean by rejecting him. They are no longer my friends.